If you've never journaled, can this be the year that you start journaling? Do that one little thing for yourself, okay? You are going to need it, especially in the month of April. You're just gonna want to share those thoughts with yourself. It's a great way to learn about yourself and how you're processing things and how you experience things and what is collective and what is personal. And we are here in the capacity of, ubunyanga, izangoma, ubungoma rather than izangoma. And those things look at collective experiences. African astrology, the context in which we do these readings every month, every year, is a collective perspective. Because African philosophy is anchored in Ubuntu, which means that I am because you are. And because we relate to each other, we become human. This is the manifestation of our humanity by relating to one another. So when we do these readings, we do them in that context, speaking to how you as an individual, the influences of the astral, may be affecting you. And especially because we know that a large part of our community are other healers, abantwana bethongo who are still seeking their path, and individuals who have such people in their lives and want to gain perspective and understanding about that lived experience. And of course, people who want to understand themselves in the context of their ancestors. It is impossible to build a relationship with your ancestors without building a relationship with yourself. And when you look at life through that prism, first yourself, interrogating yourself, building that relationship with your ancestors to deepen your understanding of yourself, you inevitably begin to see how you show up in the world around you and how you relate to the world around you. And community is an anchoring principle in African culture. We are communal people, and a lot of what we may experience, even astrologically, because of our epigenetic memory, connects to the collective. There are some really beautiful transits that reflect that opportunity to connect in such a beautiful way when we're looking around the time of the middle of the year. And that includes the solstice, that's Gemini season, that's, we're gonna see, Venus going into Gemini. It's just like, it's giving outside, it's giving thinking about others and connecting. And that's the thing with the astrology of 2024. It's saying when we look ahead, do the work now. Don't shy away from it. Because there's this opportunity for happiness that's coming. And like where the hurt is, go into it. Feel the feelings. Edlozini, ancestrally, emsamo, in the spaces that house our family and ancestral altars, there is a term, intlambuluko. Intlambuluko, if I was to describe it as anything, perhaps would be a tower moment. The tarot card of the tower, how we let everything fall apart. Speak openly. Ukuhlambuluka is to be open without pretense, complete honesty. And ukuhlambuluka emoyeni is to be free in your spirit, because you know that you are within the truth of your own honesty, within your integrity. And ukuhlambuluka edlozini means that you're connecting with the ancestors in that way. Ukuhlambuluka is essentially integrity, honesty, and connecting in integrity and honesty. And I believe that this first quarter is asking for us ukuthi sihlambuluke. And the second quarter is going to bring leyo nhlambuluko to our doorstep, into our laps, into our heart chakra. The third quarter is going to say, you've done the work. And then that final quarter, yeah, we're going to have some realizations. And we're going to feel the weight of the work that we've done in this year. We will. It's going to call for rest. It doesn't look like we end this year on a high note. The opportunity with this year is to take all the work, all the understanding, all this perspective, and bring it to our community. And there's an element of the divine feminine, that comes into play when we look at that Libra eclipse in March, when we look at that first eclipse season, and she wants to fight. She's saying, not in my name. No, you don't. It's so funny how for me it's like that whole, the femininity coaching and like that stuff, and how like popular discourse has, bastardized these sacred concepts into this really commercialized, watered down, and like completely devoid of the safety protocols that would go in hand with where they borrow these concepts from, which is largely sex work, and obviously the pure toxicity of good old-fashioned patriarchy. But it's going to come into question. So if it's something that you've been depending on, that you've been playing on in your own personal life, allow that eclipse season to bring this into question for you. Let it happen. Don't fight it, okay? Don't fight it. Let this first equinox give you an opportunity to just start again. And if there are things that you need to mourn, things that you need to lament about, the realities of the wounds that you were trying to heal through some sort of pop psychology, and like not really doing the work, and how now it's culminated, and you start to see that in the month of April when all those things start to come home to roost, and we have to look at how much we're responsible for in what it is that we reap. And like the beginning of April is going to be so tense, guys. It's going to be so tense. Let me tell you, we're in the middle of eclipse season. Like January, what it is, you're preparing yourself for this year. And like you're coming into this with the intention to be holding yourself accountable. You're coming into this with the intention to hold yourself accountable to your community. Because right now, people are not feeling very much that there is a culture of accountability within the context of community. That's the collective thing. We're just siyabalabala man. We're not happy. It feels like things are breaking, you know? That's where we are in this year. But that opportunity is accountability, because the lesson that comes out of this year is how much we make our own luck. Coming back to how this year progresses, where it might pull us down into the shadows, if you've been doing the work this year, you're going to feel and see why. You're going to begin to understand what it is that you've been preparing for. This year says you can be audacious. By all means, be audacious. And your audacity is going to be in how much you show up for yourself, by holding yourself accountable first, by being the first to call yourself out, by being the first to stand in your boundaries, like I'm not going there, or I'm not involving myself in things that don't require me. There's a difference between helping and rescuing, and that is going to kind of be the lesson of accountability of this year, where we might be in our ego in one sense, in terms of thinking that we're doing so much for our community by rescuing, and instead of like doing the work to heal ourselves and like focusing our energy on like finding that part of ourselves that wants to be helped, that wants to be healed, that is going to be so very much in our line of sight come April. This year is like giving us that opportunity to sit with those wounds. Where you want to rescue is where you need to be rescued in yourself. Rescue your future self from not getting back into that situation again, because you will have rescued your future self to the point where your present self will represent the security that your future self has, and that will be the beacon that shines to the members of your community who need the kind of help you have available, and they will ask for that help. And then when they ask for that help, you will be able to offer it. April starts in the middle of the eclipse season, first eclipse season for the year, continuing on that Libra Aries axis that we've just entered, which is wanting to fight, wanting more from life, wanting beauty, wanting all of that. But there's still some homework that needs to be done, because that full moon in April is going to be in Scorpio. So inside stuff, death, plutonic energy, like what needs to end with me questions, right? But then boom, Mercury retrograde on the 1st of April in Aries. So clever you are at that time. But not enough foresight. Aries is always ready to just jump in and fight, but not enough foresight. But there's a lot of pain in April, and that is because we've got Chiron, Kazimi, Aries. When a planet is Kazimi, and technically Chiron is not a planet, but it has a lot of influence on us. That's the wounded healer. That's our wounds. When a planet is Kazimi, it means that it is as close to the sun as it will get to. So it's like the feeling on that day is almost as though the sun is in that planet. And that is on the 8th of April. So Mercury retrograde, Sun in the wounded healer. And then you have a Mars conjunction with Saturn in Pisces. You want to fight, but you're so hurt because Pisces is so hurt about why things didn't go the way that you thought that they were gonna go. Don't talk. Don't talk. Write. And it's like if you want to write a business plan or revise a business plan, let me tell you the perspective that you're going to have in Aries about all the stuff that you've done, about how much in your power you are if you're rewriting your CV at that time. Yes, because you're going to be in that all my life I've had to fight energy in that Aries. Okay, so when you're able to gain perspective on you, and then there's that beautiful conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, where material things, beauty, what is beautiful, the desires of the one, like the material desires, and like the unconventional ways in which you could find yourself acquiring those things. And Jupiter then enters Gemini in May, where things will feel a little bit confusing, but that's that collaborative energy. By the time we get to June, there's some answers. There's some answers. There's a really strong collective energy that pulls together. Because remember, each solstice mirrors like the what was happening with that last solstice and what happens with the next solstice. So when we look at what was going on for us with the last solstice just before Christmas, and like where we're collectively starting to see the narrative change on the genocides. The thing is, the genocides have been ongoing with impunity. But collective action has forced the news cycle in the global north, which was serving the oppressor, serving the fascists, to now change their story, because they're starting to see that they're losing popularity, because the collective, the majority of the world, is not the ruling class, is not the 1%, and the majority of the world is connecting in their suffering and connecting in their understanding of how the collective global suffering is as a result of the collective global north. You get me? So yeah, when we're taking those perspectives that we've gotten from this recent solstice, and we're looking at the theme about how communal this year is, and when we get to that mid-year solstice, there's a culmination of all that discourse, action, and what it does to how we are seeing these conflicts play out. We're seeing that strongly in the middle of the year and going into June, July. Now, just in terms of personal relationships, I want to talk about this window between May and July. We're going to have Venus conjuncting Jupiter in Taurus, okay, on the 23rd of May. That's a really beautiful time to solidify make commitments and like take it to the next step with your lover. Because yeah, when Gemini season starts there in the end of May, and we go seeing Jupiter entering Gemini and Venus goes Kazimi Gemini in June, it's just giving we outside, bruh. There's just so much like community energy and connection and love in June, where we're either going to destroy each other completely. I'm looking here at Mars squaring Pluto in Aquarius, Mars in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius, and it's like we're either gonna destroy each other, or when you look just a month ahead and seeing Mars conjuncting Uranus in Taurus, it may be the crescendo of the conflict that forces dialogue. And then when we go into the Lion's Gate, if you've been doing the work, if you start the year doing the work, by the time you're coming to the Lion's Gate in August, and all of the planetary support that is in place for that, there's optimism there for me. There's optimism there, you know? And then September gets really, really busy because a retrograding Pluto goes back into Capricorn, and that's that little window for us to consider what have we learned, how do we apply it, because 19th of November, we've got Pluto re-entering Aquarius, okay? And when that happens, that's when I say like, yeah, we're gonna be feeling the weight of the work that we put in. It's like, it's not a joke. Book yourself off. I like, I don't know, because December is not even looking charitable for me. It's not feeling, again, very festive. It's not absolutely horrendous. At least the full moon has the decency to be in Gemini, and it's well in advance of the solstice and New Year. And the Mercury retrograde ends a little bit earlier this year. So there is opportunity for you to consider how you can make this Christmas Christmassy. But how you do that is not by expecting it to just happen because it is, but rather to ask yourself what role you play. We go back to community, how you can play your part. We have our work cut out for us. And essentially, if we meet this year with the energy that it's asking of us. For me, the resources I'm using is the Restful Reset workbook, you know, from Sangoma Society. And you can work through that for the entire year. It is quarterly. You're able to reflect with each solstice, each equinox, you know, as we've broken things down here. The Restful Reset workbook, which is essentially designed as a response to the pressures of living as a spiritually conscious being under the systems of capitalism. Because we find ourselves so anxious, we find ourselves so worried, borrowing so much grief from the potential of the year, and empathetically maybe also picking up on that collective grief and anxiety. So we need something that shows us who we are, how we've shown up, why we were doing the things that we were doing. And that's what the workbook is for, the Restful Reset workbook.